If I could only use two words to describe the novella we're going to be talking about today, You Were Never Really Here by Jonathan Ames, it would be pared down. This book comes in at 97 pages and wastes none of your time getting you knee-deep in this really high-level conspiracy involving corrupt cops, corrupt senators, and at the center of it, a damaged hitman, for lack of a better term, named Joe, who rescues young girls out of the sex trafficking trade. As always, welcome to Echoed Words Reviews. Hope you're having a great day. My name doesn't matter, so let's get into it. No booze for me on this one. Last night got a bit rowdy. It's also pretty early. The light it's gorgeous. There's a fire going on pretty close by. It does make the morning light pretty spectacular. So, You Were Never Really Here was originally published in 2013. And at that time, it was actually written as a 50-page novella. So about half the length of the one that we have here. In 2017, it was adapted into a movie directed by Lynn Ramsey and starring Joaquin Phoenix. And at that time, the book was republished at 97 pages. I'm not entirely sure the changes that they made to the book. I don't have the original copy, the 50-page copy. But I wonder what they are, because the movie is a pretty big departure from even what this elongated version of the story is. So I'm not sure what Ames changed or why. And this was actually something that I found out right when I started doing research for this review. In any case, before we get bogged down with extraneous details, let's focus on the book itself. So the main character, Joe, is an ex-Marine and ex-FBI agent who currently works as a hitman, specializing in finding and rescuing young girls that have been shanghaied into sex slavery, bringing them back, as he describes it, broken but alive. Through flashbacks, we learn that Joe grew up in an incredibly abusive household, and after a particularly scarring case when he was with the FBI, retreated into this bottomless, lightless pit of complete and utter self-loathing. He has no friend to speak of, really, and pretty kind of denies himself human connection, because he ascribes to this philosophy of trying to leave as little wake as possible throughout life, choosing to flit through, pretty much detached, disconnected from the world around him. There, but not there. And that's how you get the title, You Were Never Really Here. This isolation is partly him trying to protect the circle of people that he is sort of forced to be around, but also goes a little bit deeper than that and is an attempt by Joe to try and take control of a situation. Though, rather ironically, he makes it very clear, I want to say on like page 20 or something, that the whole idea of control is a myth, an illusion. Though he says that about other people and not himself. The only person that he truly loves is his mother, whom he lives with, but doesn't really speak to. One day, Joe gets called in for a job that utilizes his specific set of skills, the client being a state senator whose daughter was kidnapped, her whereabouts unknown, until he receives a text message from a number that he doesn't recognize, saying that this person found his daughter or saw his daughter at a brothel in New York City. So Joe heads to New York and, like a pro, dispatches all of the resistance at the brothel and rescues the girl. However, when he goes to bring her back to her dad, all hell breaks loose. And very quickly, Joe realizes that he's found himself right in the middle of a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top. So the rest of the book just shoots off like a bullet. It is relentless and fast-paced as Joe finds himself on the lam, occupying both the role of the hunted as well as the hunter. His whole world begins crumbling around him, and in a weird way, each tragedy that befalls him kind of acts as a sort of cleansing or contrition, atonement, that offers him liberation and allows him to grow. Early on, it's established that many of Joe's, if not all, of his obsessions and compulsions and idiosyncrasies are the result of one particularly scarring case that he was working on at the FBI. After that case, he sort of severed ties with normal human existence, moved back in with his mom, without saying a word to her or anybody about it, almost like a self-imposed exile, really. But as his world collapses, it's almost like his prison walls come crumbling down and offer him freedom from his own code that he very, very strictly adheres to. And as the book races towards its conclusion, we begin seeing Joe break his code and move beyond it and operate very differently than it sets him up in the beginning. It's the brutal, fast-paced, violent redemption of a man who willingly cast himself into this bottomless pit of overwhelming self-hatred and who is trying to claw his way back. And though he may not succeed, he will nevertheless make the attempt. One thing that I haven't mentioned is that the book goes very hard in describing Joe's PTSD, or I guess actually it might be complex PTSD or CPTSD, which is brought on not necessarily by the stuff that he saw in the war when he was a Marine. He's a veteran of the Gulf War and saw conflict, I guess killed 18 men, that kind of thing. But that's not what leaves the deepest scars in him. It's the really horrific abuse that he suffered at the hands of his father, who himself was suffering from PTSD as the result of what he saw in the Korean War. There's a powerful repudiation of war and its horrors and the psychological effect that those have on people on page 18. Joseph Sr., also a Marine, had fought in the Korean War. He went inhuman and came out subhuman. After his discharge with honors, he found work at LaGuardia Airport as a mechanic, but felt that it was beneath him. So he hated his job, hated his life, hated the constant nightmares of being in battle without cover or ammunition. And he hated his beautiful Italian wife because she loved him and he couldn't feel it. They had married before the war, before he had been changed, destroyed. That's powerful stuff. And that's the style of this book. That's Ames's writing style here is, I guess you could call it an ice-cold iceberg. There is almost nothing extraneous or needless in this book, which is to be expected at 97 pages. But even so, it is written so cold and to the point, really stripped down. Nothing useless or needless. Very, 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 very to the point. And an extremely fast read. You could probably read this in, I think I read it in about an hour, give or take. Really, really, really short. So if you're a fan of hard-boiled crime or noirs or neo-noirs, definitely check this out. So something you may have noticed on this book, as well as if you've seen the other reviews, is that I like to mark my books with these little sticky notes for either, standout passages or lines that, have resonated with me, or something that I think is a clear articulation of what I think the theme of the novel is, or in this case, novella. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to make a completely useless and meaningless ranking system where we take the total number of pages, divide it by the number of stickies, and apply a rating on the Stickometer and try to see what books are stickier than others. That sounds wrong. So this one will be our first. At 97 pages, it has 10 stickies, giving this a stick rating on the Stickometer of 9.7. Is that good? I don't know. It seems good. This rating isn't meant to be a scoring system for books. It doesn't mean that You know, the higher the score, the better a book. It just is stuff that stood out to me, which is probably different than stuff that would stick out to you. But nonetheless, I think it'd be kind of fun to get a ranking system, and I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what we do with that. One thing that we haven't talked about that I mentioned at the start of the video is the movie that came out in 2017. And that's one of the rare cases, actually, where I like the movie more than the book. And that's not a knock against the book. I enjoyed the book quite a lot. But that's more a praise of the film itself. There are some significant differences between the two. They're mostly the same up until the halfway point of both, and then they diverge pretty heavily. The movie is directed by one of my favorite directors, Lynn Ramsey. If you haven't seen her work, she made 3 incredible short films. I think when she was still in school. The Gas Man is just fantastic. And then her first film, Ratcatcher, is also just... it's something special. Her take on the source material is really quite spectacular. So be sure to check out the movie too. Just know that it's not your usual straightforward crime, revenge, Liam Neeson Taken type movie. It definitely has some more surreal elements to it. So that's You Were Never Really Here. If you enjoyed this review or have read and enjoyed this book, go ahead, leave a like, drop a comment, and if you didn't, leave a dislike and a comment, and let me know what I can do to get better. All right, well, as always, have a great day, and happy reading.